Evening, everybody. Keith here. Hope everybody's having a good night, safe weekend, enjoying life, being yourself. Gonna wait for some people to get on here. How you doing tonight, David? Bill, good evening. Hope everybody's doing good. Ren, Danny Berg. There's Evil. How you doing, girl? Mason, Danny, how you doing tonight? Okay, Evil, this is for you, girl. You wanted me to post something about basically defeating the birth certificate. And I'll start out by telling you that basically, in my opinion, the birth certificate, no matter how you look at it, is fraud, period. I'm not going to go into that right now, but I will start out with the statement of live birth is where it all starts with. Your mom goes to the hospital and she gives birth to a child, or she bears her young. And remember, this is all specific wording. This is what they're using against you is the words. So pay attention to the words that they're using. Pay attention to the words that I'm using. I'm trying to point things out to you. And basically, when your mom goes to the hospital and she bears her young on a hospital ward, remember, that's a military term, ward. And that's where you get the ward of the state issue. And then, of course, from that they derive a certificate of live birth. That certificate of live birth is used to create the birth certificate. And the birth certificate is used to create the Social Security account, which is a public trust fund. Public charitable trust. And basically, or actually I think it's the birth certificate is the public charitable trust, and then the Social Security account is a foreign situs trust that they use to protect the actual public charitable trust. So anyway, you have a birth certificate that is now created by the state through presumed consent of what's called on the statement of live birth or birth certificate, the informant is known as a mother. Look up the term mother. It's not what you think it is. Same with husband and wife. You're not husband and wife, you're man and woman, and you're companions. If you're married, you're husband and wife. If you're married, you're mother and father. And if you're married and you're mother and father, and you have children, not offspring. It's all specific wording. And so anyway, when it comes to defeating the birth certificate, that's what you do, is you use wording. Everything they do is a matter of wording. Several languages. It comes down to this. You got various different forms of communication. And like I explained in my UCC 1-308 video, one of those forms of communication is the physical body. So when you sign UCC 1-308, reserving your rights to not contract, you're saying, I do not wish to contract. But then when you communicate by physically showing up in the courtroom, you're communicating to them that you do wish to contract now. And that's what we're trying to defeat, is all the multiple languages. So we can't just comprehend what we comprehend. We have to start educating ourselves in all the different languages, all the different levels of communication. And when I say that, I mean you have to understand numbers, letters, symbols, words, sentences, sentence structure, concepts, paragraphs, terms, conditions. They're all different forms of communication. When it comes down to the birth certificate and those forms of communication, most of you have been subjected to the information of the all caps name, and now we're hearing things about birth certificates with the lowercase. And no matter how you want to look at it, the construct of it is, and by the rules of its construct and how it's used or meant to be used, it is a fictitious entity. It is designed and constructed as a corporate entity known as a public charitable trust, decedent estate. Those words all determine that the decedent would be necessarily the mom and dad, the mother and father. Mother and father, too, are the fictitious entities. Particularly if you notice, like on mine, it was my mother and father were also in capital letters. And so we have to get down, when we want to defeat that, we have to get down to understand that there is a difference between legal and lawful. And all those legal documents, that's all the fictitious corporation and everything. In order to defeat it, you have to rebut it in the public record. You have to create your own lawful document. That is a superior document to a legal document. Understand that concept. That's a different form of communication. In lawful documents, you use what's known as a one-to-one communication. In other words, whoever reads it, whether it be a foreigner that doesn't understand English, but he has an interpreter that can interpret it, he's not going to sit there and be ambiguous about one little word. He's going to find another comparative word in that other language that matches up perfect so that whoever he's conveying it to comprehends and is cognizant of exactly what they're saying. So when you do these lawful documents, and you're going to come across all kinds of titles for them. It doesn't have to be titled Notice of Nativity. It doesn't have to be titled, like mine, I titled mine Notice and Decree of Heirs Born. I had a daughter that was born, so I titled it Notice and Decree of Heiress Born. And so it's up to you. You create the document. But you use wording that's specific in one-to-one so that whoever else sees it knows what you're saying. And that's the problem in these courts today. We have over 8 million codes, statutes, rules, regulations, acts, ordinances, edicts, proclamations. It's pathetic. Nobody could possibly learn them all. But what we can learn is one-to-one communication. Everybody can get back down to the quantum languages of basically a third grader. No, you're not my boss. I don't have to do what you tell me to. And that's the basics of it. So when you get down to your creation of a document that's going to have superior force in law, you got to be creative about it. So look these things up on the on Google or your search engines, and don't go by just one. Look up different things. Like I said, notice of birthright. There's all different kinds of things that you can look up, and you're going to find something. Somebody's already thought about it and published something to that similar source. And so in the case of mom bearing that offspring, you really want to vacate all of the contracts that you're already involved in. And that physical communication of going to a public hospital, a government facility, is communicating to them that you want a contract. So the very start of doing things lawful is cutting those contracts, because those contracts are legal. So when you cut that contract with the hospital, what do? You have what's called a home birth. And nobody can say that you have to have your child at a hospital. If they're trying to convince you of that, then you have to correct your own capacity to have the status of a man, to have the standing as a man. In other words, when they put this document out there known as a birth certificate, and they assign a trustee who has power of attorney, and they're using that against you in order to rebut that, use their own weapons. They've got a power of attorney. Well, in law, there's a thing called durable power of attorney. In fact, and that's what you need to correct, is you have to be the durable power of attorney in fact of your estate, and your estate. The third estate, what I'm talking about, is what's come from the past and has been passed on to you, and that you're going to pass on to your heirs and heiresses. This is your body of estate, and this is your spirit of estate. Think about how to use this from what you've gotten so you can pass what you got on. So the only way you're going to defeat their fiction is to stay in your own reality of who you are, and that you're not that fiction. So you create your own documents to prove that their fictional presumption isn't so. All law is based on presumption until it's rebutted. Once it's rebutted, if they don't come back and answer to that, then it stands as truth in law. So remember, when you're doing creating your own lawful documents, make sure that you've got your own documents done up first for at least age of majority and durable power of attorney in fact. Those I would recommend highly first. And then, of course, you got your authenticate the birth certificate so you can collapse that trust or move it into a private irrevocable trust or something. There's a lot of different options. But again, like I said, you can collapse that or move it into your own private trust. You can collapse that and create your own private family trust and keep that protected and use that as a transmitting utility for performing commerce. Because that's all that birth certificate is. It's a transmitting utility so that the living man has some kind of parity with the fictional world so they can perform commerce. The living man cannot contract with the fictional entity. The only valid contract is a contract between a living man and a living man, or a fiction and a fiction. Those are the only valid contracts. That's why when you get these hospital bills, phone bills, utility bills, water bill, electric bill, garbage bill, you're not going to have any other man that's going to go into court and put their signature on a documentation saying, okay, I'm liable, or I qualify as the liable representative. Nobody's going to do that. So when it comes to creating your own documents now, now that you've had a home birth, and I'm one of these older guys. I don't show it, I don't think, but I'm 51 years old. And back when I was born, I remember they were still having these home births. And when they have these home births, they were recording things into the family Bible and the family registry. How many of you are familiar with that stuff anymore? Those are things that they're omitting through this, though they say all these different religions want to sit there and preach that they're doing all this good. Yet they're one of the main instrumentalities of omitting for their own commercial purposes the true meaning, effect, and use of those family Bibles and family registries, both for life and death. See, it's only in the fictional world you need a life certificate called a birth certificate and a death certificate. So, anyway, back in the day, that's what they had, and I remember seeing my name in one of those family Bibles or a family registry, something like that. And that's the correct way to do it, to stay on the private side. You create your own lawful document that supersedes anything any legal fiction can produce, and present that into the public record for all to see, time immemorial and everlasting. And there's no one, like I said, is ever going to come step forward. I don't care if it's the Pope, the Queen, the President, I don't care if it was President Trump, President Bush, they're all fucking cowards. Ain't none of them going to step up and say they actually got authority. Period. So that's all it comes down to is making sure that you use your own words, make them simple words. And I'll look back through my file evil and bring up the one I drew up. I'll post it on this video here in the next day or two, so you can see what mine is. And it's very simple, and I suggest to keep things simple. But yet, when you research this, you'll find people that have things called notice of nativity that are 4, 5, 6, 9, 10 pages long, because they're citing all kinds of stuff to break all the different presumptions. Whereas if you just keep it simple, then you're not walking yourself into something else where they're going to presume a catch-22 on you. It's like using their codes and statutes. Don't do that. Keep it real short and simple and use the words as they're meant to be used. In beginning was word. Say what you mean and mean what you say. If you don't know what you're talking about when you say what you mean, then you don't mean what you say. So my suggestion is always going to be to keep them simple, keep them in your words. Make sure to educate yourself in the use of, like I said, the letters, numbers, symbols, words, sentences, sentence structure, terms, conditions, concepts, ideas, paragraphs, the whole thing. They're all different forms of communication. Your body language, everything. It's the only way we're going to get down to that one-to-one level of communication, because when you see the look on my face and you see how I express myself, and you know me deep inside that I'm just a passionate person and I'm not angry, but if I happen to express that anger, it's probably due to the source that I'm getting it from, so I can convey it properly. So it's just a matter of getting back to understanding you're the boss. When it comes to all this entire government construct, when it comes to the entire religious construct, when it comes to the entire societal construct, you're still the boss. Every nation starts as a house. Every house starts as a man. A companionship. A man and a woman. And that's another one. If you noticed earlier, I mentioned a marriage is a state-derived term, a fictional term, whereas a true word is a companion. Before religion got involved, a man and a woman got together and they were companions. Even before the written language came around, they were literally companions. You can't say that they were married, because that would turn that they had some kind of religious ideals to be married by. So think about this stuff. Everything goes back to its origins. And if you think your origin is some kind of fiction, then go ahead and keep believing in that birth certificate. Now, like I said, it's a fiction and I believe it to be fraud, but that doesn't mean you can't use it. It just means that in my belief that if you do use it, you're partaking in that fraud. You're feeding that fraud. So my advice is, if you're going to take the active role in that birth certificate, you do so as the durable power of attorney, and as soon as you do that, you collapse it and create your own. Create your own estate, your own corporate entity, your own transmitting utility. Protect it the same way they do with a private trust and a foreign situs trust, known as a dry trust. Check that stuff out. Irrevocable trust. And make sure you do things like your living will, and your corpus will. Let me see. Where is that? I've got a note here. Oh, and paramount claim, All different kinds of things. Yes, an estate will. An estate will known as a corpus will. Look this stuff up. This is all stuff that you need to learn so you can understand how to operate this stuff in order to be able to defeat them. And remember, people, this is all on you anyway, because it's, again, like I said about the political construct and the religious construct, same with the educational construct. You're the original source of the power. And understand it in this concept. There wasn't a public school here in America until 1860 in Boston. I believe was the first public schoolhouse in America. Before then, our forefathers taught their own families. And think about it in a deeper sense, people. Our forefathers didn't just teach their children reading, writing, and arithmetic. They taught them religion. They taught them politics. They taught them musical arts. They taught them visual arts. They taught them literal arts. They taught them how to farm. They taught them how to cook. They taught them how to make moonshine. They taught them how to raise wheat, grow crops, including hemp, including marijuana, including cannabis, including sativa. They taught them law. So they grew up knowing the law. That's another thing. People say, well, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well, you might want to say that, but think deeper in that as well, because those who are supposed to be learned in the law are to know the law. Those that aren't, then the expectation of intent couldn't possibly be there. So that kind of nullifies any kind of crime. You have to have that mental intent to be able to commit any kind of crime. You also have to have that mental intent to be able to sign a valid contract, showing that you give consent. Think about this stuff, people. It's all very easy. And that's all you got to do is start entering your own private, lawful documents. And if that means if that means starting your own family registry and going out and getting your own family Bible and getting things going in there too, then do it. And they make all kinds of Bibles, and you don't have to have a Bible. If you're atheist, you can do it by just a family registry. All it is a record, a private record, that you're willing to put out forth into the public at any time anybody has any questions, any presumptions. So, basically, it all comes down to the words, and you have to be the one to use those words. Like I said, it's the words that they're using against you in these courts, the different languages, all that. And when you go into these courts and you don't ask them for that clarity, then that's just one more reason they're going to railroad you. So anytime you go into court, it's always wise to just ask questions, but make sure they're really good questions. Can the prosecution tell me the precise statute that clarifies the use of the term person in these civil matters that have been named a crime? You know, there's all kinds of things that if you just put the right words together, that they're presenting into evidence. They're doing this. They're bringing forth and submitting bonds without a valid cause of action because there is no injured party that they have to have in either civil or criminal matters. So it doesn't matter if they want to call it a crime and use civil procedures, or call it a civil action and use criminal procedures. That's part of the fraud in plea agreements. When they charge you, they've got a charging instrument that they've already bonded. They've already done so without a cause. So think about this stuff, people, and really educate yourself in all this stuff before you go putting those lawful doctrines. So, again, I'll reiterate, in my opinion, it's very important to do the age of majority affidavit first, along with the durable power of attorney in fact. And you can look this stuff up with the search engines. And my suggestion is to look up the it's called Uniform Power of Attorney Act of 2006 is the most recent one that they go by, and that's going to give you the information you need to set yourself up as durable power of attorney of your own estate. In fact, your own estate, and estate. Understand that. Those are your three estates. The spiritual estate, the physical estate, and then the fictional estate that's being passed from one generation to the other. So, learn this stuff, but understand that if you're going to do it, keep it simple, use your own words, and know what you're doing. In the meantime, if it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless you. I love you. That's all I got. Enjoy. Have a good night.